Hi, I'm Julie, and welcome to my kitchen, where I talk sports while I'm whipping up culinary treats. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make crostini. You'll see how that ties into the Cubs Brewers in just a second. If you watched that game 1 of the Cubs Brewers in Milwaukee, you knew from the beginning that the Cubs were toast. Well, maybe not the Michael Busch homer. It was after that, when Matthew Boyd struggled pitching on 3 days rest. I know a lot of Cubs fans who are already telling me they don't want to see him brought back on 3 days rest again in this series. He was struggling early, and the Cubs were toast in the first inning when the Brewers put up a 6 spot. Conversely, we're also going to be incorporating a lot of cheese. I love cheese. Who doesn't, right? Okay, well, maybe you lactose intolerant people, maybe you're cringing right now, but I've got a lot of great varieties of cheese that we're going to incorporate today. So we're going to just have some fun with it. We're going to pay homage to the Brewers and their rich history of cheese up in Milwaukee. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Cubs' inability to be competitive in game 1. But they weren't burnt toast. They did put up a couple runs. They had the homer by Busch. Nico Horner had a homer. So they weren't burnt toast. They were just kind of a little charred. So we're going to start with our bread here. And I have 2 different kinds we're going to use. What you want to use is like a skinny loaf, a French loaf, a skinny Italian. And you're just going to cut it. I like to cut it on the bias. So we're just going to cut a few of these like this. Probably about maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. So we got something like that working. This I found at our local Meijer store today. If you have a Meijer grocery store, check these out. It is a 4-cheese everything bread. So it's got great flavor to it. The only thing about it is that it opens up like this, like a sandwich roll. So we gotta make sure we keep our little toast points here kind of smushed together. But I'm gonna use this for brats tomorrow night. I think that's gonna be outstanding. So we've got our pieces of bread here ready to roll. I'm gonna clear this out of our way for one quick second. So now that we have our bread ready, this is gonna get brushed with olive oil, and then it's gonna go in the oven. I've got my oven right now at 425. It's gonna be about 6 to 8 minutes. If you like it crispy on the outside and a little chewy on the inside, if you want it really crispy, knock your oven down to 375 and bake it a little bit longer, 8 to 10 minutes. All I'm doing is I'm taking some olive oil and I'm brushing it on my pieces of bread here. That'll help give it a nice little crispy finish when we toss it in the oven. All right, so as we get this rolling here, we're gonna start looking ahead to game 2 in this series. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what's going on with pitching strategies for game 2. First of all, you have Pat Murphy deciding to use an opener. People who know me know I hate the opener in baseball, but I kind of understand it a little bit from Pat Murphy's perspective in terms of wanting Aaron Ashby, his opener, to face the Cubs lineup, because you're facing a lefty now in Ashby, and you have the Cubs lineup, which is heavy early on in lefties and switch hitters. So you have Pat Murphy saying, I don't want to see another Michael Busch homer in the first inning. Then he's going to go to his bulk innings guy, Quinn Priester, who, by the way, if you're following me here in Illinois, he's a local guy. Went to Cary Grove High School, so somebody who probably knows the Cubs pretty well, but is also pitching for Milwaukee once they get through their opener. All right, I'm gonna toss these in the oven right now. I've got them brushed with the oil. They're going in. And like magic, I'm gonna bring these over. These are some that just came out of the oven right before we started recording. So we've got some that are ready to go. Speaking of ready to go, Cubs fans hoping Shota Imanaga is ready to go because he's gonna be your starter for game 2. Last time we saw Shota out there was when he probably should have walked Manny Machado when they were facing the Padres, and instead Manny Machado hit a big old home run off Shota. So we're hoping Shota maybe shows a little bit more better judgment Can't blame it all on him though. Craig Council's pulling some strings there too. All right, what you didn't see as I threw those in the oven is I've got all sorts of salts and herb blends. And so some of these got tossed with a little bit of seasoning before I put them in. You don't have to. I've also got ones that just had olive oil. And you can brush both sides if you want. If you're running short on time, one side is fine. And even some of them just have sprinkles of salt. So it's up to you what you have available and what you like using when you're in the kitchen. Now that they have come out of the oven, they're still a little bit warm, that's where we start hitting up the cheeses. We want to make sure it has a high moisture, high water content so that it melts easily. I'm going to use my Fontina on one of my seasoned toast points here. It'll start to soften a little bit because the toasts are still warm. But if you want to get really daring, you would throw these back in the oven. I, as a pastry chef, am going to pull out my creme brulee torch and I'm just going to melt it a little right on the toast. Don't do this at home. But you're going to throw them back in the oven if you want that cheese to melt a little bit. You're going to incorporate cheese with one of your other toppings. It can be a spread, it can be a jam. I have a caramelized onion paste. All sorts of great combinations. You can go sweet and savory. You can go all one, all the other. But I've got my cheese. You can see it's melting here. I've got all sorts of options, from sun-dried tomatoes to fresh herbs. I have some blackberries, which we'll get to in a second. I have prosciutto, so let's go with that. Let's get a little added salt content here. Prosciutto, I'm just gonna kind of fold like that. And that might be a good spot to put our sun-dried tomatoes. Now you can either put them on chopped up, or you can take these big whole pieces and put them on like that. Either way, you're gonna get that salty, oily deliciousness balancing out. Some of the ones I did with the cheese bread, these are delicious, can't even tell you. These are ones, again, you can use something like a tomato pesto, a regular basil pesto. Any of these would go really well on here. You can put your toppings on before you put your cheeses on. Just depends which way you want to go. I also have a couple soft cheeses here, and these tend to be more your sweet varieties. I have one that is a cinnamon cranberry goat cheese. Yum! So I'm going to spread this one on here. You can see all the fruit, all the flavors, and it smells really good too. So that is a soft cheese, which we would then want to top with one of our toppings here. I could go with the figs, or you could go more cheese. You could do another cheese on top of that. I'll put some figs on here. This one's going to be kind of sweet. And you can also drizzle with different toppings as well. I have honey, which makes a great drizzle on any of these options. I'll go back to my plain ones here so you can see a couple other ideas I have. Here's my onion paste, caramelized onion. Gonna squirt that on there. Doesn't that look yummy? So I got my caramelized onions. Then I can go with something like the figs or the blackberries. All sorts of options. I think I might use some of my fresh thyme here, just like that. Now we're gonna put the cheese on top. I have smoked Gruyere. I have a bourbon smoked Gouda. I love smoked Gouda. I also have a Tennessee whiskey cheese, which, not gonna lie, smells pretty strong. Smells like a whole bottle in a cheese right there. All right, so again, I have this all set up. I'm gonna give it a quick blast with my fire. You're gonna put it back in the oven. I'm just gonna blast it a little bit so it gets a little melty. And then I'm gonna use one of my drizzles here. I've got a balsamic glaze. So I can do something like just a little bit of drizzle with the balsamic. Or again, you can do something like the honey. So I'm gonna combine them here. You don't really wanna get too crazy. You don't wanna put too many different flavors. But you've got the sweet and the salty all coming together, and it looks pretty on a plate as well. Now, if you're sitting and watching baseball, maybe you don't need it to look pretty. Maybe you just want it to be hearty and filling, and that's where you can bulk up on any of these options. You can also go spicy if you want. I've got spicy honey here. You can use spicy srirachas as your toppings. Anything that sounds like a good combination to you will probably work on these. And again, we got the cheese, paying homage to our guys up north. And if you ever take the I-94 trip up there, You know you passed Mars Cheese Castle, which is one of my personal favorites ever since I was a kid, and they had the big mouse outside. Maybe you're gonna make a stop there on your way to game 2. Or if you can't quite get to the Mars Cheese Castle, I highly recommend, if you have a Woodman's grocery store by you, they're a Milwaukee, or rather a Wisconsin-based grocery store, their cheese aisle's like a block long. That's where you can find a lot of this good stuff. So I'm gonna keep whipping up some of these, but I'm just not gonna share anymore because I'm hungry. I'm just gonna keep them for myself. I'm gonna grab a nice little glass of wine here to just kind of keep me company with my crostinis. They don't have to be fancy. They can be as basic as you like, but these are also fancy enough to serve for company. So I'm gonna dig on in and we'll see how game 2 plays out. It's a very tired bullpen for the Cubs, so hopefully Shota can give them some innings. I'm Julie, thanks for joining me in my kitchen. Oh, so good.